Today, we're going to talk about wind. Talk about what wind is, what it's going to do to our frisbees, and how we can relate it to any shot. So we don't have to know like what's happening with the wind to know how it's going to react to our disc. So what I'm saying is, like, I don't have to know exactly how this disc flies in a headwind to throw it in a headwind. I can take how the disc I think it flies, what the headwind's going to do based on how the wind's going, and I can combine those things to get an outcome. So we're going to talk about the different ways you can interpret the wind and what that's going to do to the disc. So first one, like right away, I like to think about the wind as not air. I like to think about it as water. That might sound crazy, but think about air and all the molecules that make it up. There's all this gas particles all in the air. They're made of different things. They're all everywhere. We can't see them. Imagine those were water droplets, and so we're underwater. And as the wind is coming towards us, that's like a wave coming down the ocean. I feel a wind. We got a little bit of a headwind right here. It's coming back towards you. The waves are coming towards you. Where you're at, standing behind the camera, you're on shore, and you're looking out at the beach. You've got the ocean out there, and the waves are coming right back at you. So what's going to happen to our frisbee dependent on what that water is doing with it? So the simplest way I like to think about it is, we're going to use the headwind right now, but I don't want you to think about left or right or forward or backwards. I just want you to think about what way the disc is facing compared to what way the wind is going. So first thing that we can think of is, if the wind is coming this way, the waves are coming this way, and the water is going to hit the top of the disc. So the water hits the disc and it hits the top, and the top of the disc goes through the disc. So the wave goes over the top of the disc. Where's that disc going? Shoop! It's going down. So whenever the water is going to be on top of the disc, going like this, fighting it where the water can go over it around to the other side, meaning there's an air pocket under here, it's going to push down that way. Opposite goes for that too. So you got the wave coming towards you. If the water is underneath it, and it's not going to be able to get over the top of the disc, but it's going to go under it, that disc is going to ride up the wave like a surfer would. It's just going to go up that wave because there's going to be an air pocket here rather than here. And so it's going to push up the wave like that. So you've got two variables now. You've got, is the wave on top of the water? Is the wave not on top of the water? So if the wave's on top of the water, if the wave's on top of the disc will go down. If the wave is underneath the disc will go up. So like right away you can relate that to headwinds and tailwinds pretty quickly. So we'll do that. So we got a headwind coming right at us. Boom. We're not going to worry about this. Assume I throw the disc perfectly flat, and this disc has like the straightest flight you've ever seen in a frisbee, just dead straight. If I put it with the nose up, that means the wave is underneath and my disc is going to rise. If you know anything about nose angles, if you've watched my upshot disc video where we talk about throwing upshots and using the nose angles to change things, when I put the water underneath it and the disc gets rose, my nose angle is now getting affected. Which, what's that do to the disc? It's going to make it more overstable. So that 0-0 flight is now going to fade out more because I put it nose up into that headwind. I let the water hit it, it changed the nose angle. What happens when the nose angle changes? You get more stability. Bam. Opposite happens. I go into the headwind and I throw it nose down. It's coming out of my hand, it's got a nice nose down, headwind's coming at it. Wind's gonna hit it, whoa. Wind's gonna be hitting the disc, and it's gonna get pushed down. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because the headwind wants to lift it, so that's gonna put it pretty straight. But you don't necessarily want to get it too nose down. This might not be that apparent in throwing in a headwind. You'll see them sometimes they'll be going, you'll think it's good, and then it'll just whoop, whoop, and it'll do those drops. It's probably because the nose angle gets pushed down by the wind, boom, the water hits it, boom, drops it, and it keeps trying to level back out. So like your disc always goes from nose down to nose up, so every time it knocks it down, it wants to come back up, and it's going to be doing that the whole time. So you want to throw flat into that headwind so you can avoid it. If you want to throw nose up in the headwind, you're going to do it so you get more stability. If you want to make sure your shot doesn't lift, you can throw it a little nose down throw it a little higher with that nose down and let it kind of fall. But those are some things you could do with the headwind right away. That last one I mentioned where you put it nose down into a headwind, not super noticeable on driving. When you're putting, very noticeable. Everyone's always scared to put their nose up in the headwind because when you putt at it, the water hits it, boom, and it lifts it. The wave picks it up, makes it nose up, stability takes it into flight. If I put it nose down in a headwind, shoot, your putter's not gonna make it there. And a lot of people, they try to correct their headwind putts with a little more nose down, and they overdo it, and they get that nose dive, and they actually end up low. And then they have the thought, how the hell did I just miss high and then low in a headwind? And it's because you changed your nose angle too much. So that's how you do it right there in a headwind. Simple, think about it. So let's think of a more complex version. I'm gonna grab a drink real quick. So first one I can think of is a very common one. I do this a lot being a forehand player. Not that I'm a forehand only player, I'm 50-50. But I like a strong forehand. I like being able to rip a forehand. If you ever played Delwood, hole 8, big wide open hole, just like this. It's pretty open. There's OB on both sides. It's almost always a right to left wind. The wind is coming across this way. It's coming right to left. I don't like throwing hyzers into right to left. And you can probably see why. If the water, which is going this way, gets underneath my disc lifts. So what do you do to combat that? You're thinking, oh, I'll just throw a flippier disc. And that's usually what I try to do. So I'll throw a flippier disc, and it'll work sometimes. I'll get more stand up and less hyzer off, and it'll drop. But if you throw that flippier disc a little higher on accident, it's gonna have so much time to lift out and flex out of bounds. And so then you think, I'll go overstable. I'll go super overstable. You throw it too flat, the wind hits the top of the disc, boom, drops it down your OB right side. So what I do, I don't throw any of those shots because that crosswind, it's a little hard to deal with as a right-hand backhand player. I'd say the best shot into that crosswind is right-hand backhand. Is something overstable on an anhyzer, which I don't really want to do as often. I'd rather forehand. So I've got that wind going right to left. I'm gonna expose the flight plate. So you're thinking, why would I do that? Why would I ever expose it and let it take over? When I do that with the backhand wants to go to the left. Boom, it's going double left now. The forehand wants to come out and go to the right, so I will be fighting that wind the whole way. I'll equalize the wind. So if I've got 10 miles an hour of wind coming that way, and I put 10 extra miles an hour, however you would translate that into angle, onto this, you can expect that this overstable disc, imagine it's like a PD2 or something, or an XCal or a destroyer. Like, the wind is gonna push it over, but the whole time the disc is gonna wanna get more stable, so it's gonna lift as it's overstabling out and then fade out. So you're gonna get the wind lift for the extra distance, and you're gonna get the reliability of that fade back at the end. So those are like simple ways you can use the wind, and like, I like to think about it always as like, it's never a simple wind and it's never a simple angle. We like to think about them as being like just a few variables. So like, you've got mega hyzer, hyzer, flat, kind of anti, roller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we think wind, there's 4 directions. It's not that simple. There are all of the angles. Think about it as angles. Imagine there's, from here to here is 180 degrees. So it's anywhere from positive 90 to negative 90. And the wind could be in any direction. So the wind could be coming in 360 different directions. So you have to think about it actively when it's happening and try to calculate that for yourself. So like, we're gonna pull up a wind. I'm gonna make a random situation. I'm not gonna think about the situation. I'm gonna make some wind, make a distance, and then I'm gonna try to think about that shot. So we've got a left to right tailwind, left to right tailwind, so left to right quarter wind. I think that's what they'd call it. Quarter tail, I don't know. Left to right quarter tail. And the hole is to the right hand side of the fairway. It's to the right hand side of this big open fairway. So we've got a right to left. Did I say right to left? We'll go right to left if I didn't. Right to left, tail. Boom, wind is going this way. My hole is over to the right. So that means when I throw my disc, I need to go over to the right, but I'm always going to have this wave acting on my Frisbee. So what can I do to counteract that? If I throw a hyzer with a backhand, the wave is going to pick me up and lift me. I can try to fight that by going really wide to the right. Depends on what's over there. We don't know what's over there right now. Let's imagine that's out of play. That's not an option. So that wide hyzer, there's some forest over there. We can't do that. So we think flat shot. Flat shot's good. The problem is you throw it 1 degree too much, wind pushes you down. You throw it 1 degree not enough, wind pushes you up. You want something that's, the wind isn't going to change you in a wider range of variables. So like, I want a shot that whatever angle I'm in, it doesn't really matter if I miss it by 10 degrees, I'm still going to get a similar wind result. So that flat shot, it's got a lot of variables hanging in the balance. So I'm going to think of forehand here. I got a wind coming this way. So that means if I throw my disc on a forehand, I've got options. I can go angled over, I can go Annie, flat, hyzer, lots of hyzer. If I go Annie, I'm letting the wind take my disc and it's pushing it this way. Might be a good thing. If I need the distance, I would probably do that, because then I'm getting that perfect tailwind, lift, drive kind of driver shot where the wind is pushing my disc directly where it needs to go to have a flex flight. Let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say the hole's 275. I don't want to go too far. I'm worried about going deep. I'm going to throw the hyzer. Reason I'm going to throw the hyzer forehand, I got the quarter wind coming at me. If I throw it on 45 degrees of hyzer, what happens? My disc gets knocked down. If I throw it on 22 degrees of hyzer, what happens? My disc gets knocked down. If I throw it flat and it's overstable, what happens? My disc gets knocked down. So I just banked on the result of no matter what I do, it's going to get knocked down by what I throw. So I'm going to think if I were to throw this normally, 275, I'll probably throw like a zone, a tactic, 275. But I'm going to get knocked down every step of the way there. So I'm going to go with something a little faster. I'm going to go with an eagle or a firebird or an ati or whatever you got, a felon, doesn't matter. But I'm going to go faster because I know the wind's going to knock me down, and I'm relying on that to keep me from going too far. So I can use that to boom, boom, get it going. So that's an example of how you can use those wind variables and just relate them to the shot you're trying to throw and make it happen. The things you need to know to do this are, you need to know the stability of the disc you have. Like for you, what happens when you throw it with zero wind? When you throw it hard, when you throw it soft, when you throw it medium, when you throw it perfect, when you throw it terrible. You need to know those things to be able to judge this formula and know what's going to happen with your disc. You also need to know things like weather. Like, is a slipperier T-pad going to make me throw a lot harder or shorter? All those things are super apparent. You got to think about angles. Do you get more power on a hyzer than on an anhyzer? Adjust your formula. Change it. All these things. And like, you have to understand what nose angles do to your disc to understand what this formula is going to do. If you don't understand nose up equals more overstable, nose down equals more understable, if you don't get that concept yet, it's not that simple, but like it kind of is. If you don't understand that, then it's going to be hard to relate those topics. So try to get all of your little ducks in a row when it comes to the wind and the stability and flight numbers and angles. And you can use this wind formula so you never have to like guess. You'll never have to guess what the wind is doing. You know what the wind is doing. If the wind is coming at this direction and you are throwing at this direction, you can assume what's going to happen, and it's totally accurate. And when the rare occasions when it doesn't happen, it's things like this. It's usually, I think there's a headwind and my disc doesn't turn over as much as I thought it would. And so I think it's a fake headwind. That's what I always say to myself. I throw a shot, it doesn't turn, it fades out early, I go, damn, fake headwind. And what that is I banked on the fact that my disc was going to turn, and the wind wasn't as strong up there as I thought it was. I made an error, user error, not formula error, user error. Same thing happens with every other mistake. It's usually user error. But if you can avoid user error, use the formula, you'll always be comfortable with the wind. As soon as I started thinking about wind as water, I can't even remember the last time I was worried about what was going to happen to my disc in a windy situation. Every 80-foot headwind death putt I've taken in the past like 2 years, I am not worried about it because I know the way I'm putting it and the wind is coming at me. I'm putting it in a way that there's no way I miss high. I hit the chains or the basket, or I'll go underneath it. And sometimes going underneath it doesn't work, but what are you gonna do? It's golf. So good luck. Hopefully you can implement this stuff. This is like what goes on my head in a second. If you know anything about programming, this is like in my update function. I just run this every frame to make sure things are going good. And then I just decide whenever it's time to throw, based on what all my variables have been set to, what to do. And I trust it. I trust it to work. I don't overthink it too much. If you overthink it, you've overthinked it. So good luck. Have a good day.